Hey, what is going on? It is me, SR Mori, and today I wanted to talk about something really cool. If you didn't know, the Batman was just greenlit for a sequel, and so I thought I would go through and finally do what I would like to see in said sequel. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Please leave a like down below and subscribe if at any point during the video you like what I have to say. Yeah, so let's get into it. Why not? This is me looking at my favorite villains and how you could incorporate them into this world. So this is probably my favorite part of the video. All right, Bane. Bane is a villain that we're probably not going to see, but I would love it if we did. And so in this world, if you're going to ground Bane into this world, I know that the adrenaline Batman uses at the end is green, but it's supposedly not supposed to be Venom. But it's not official. If I was Matt Reeves and I was hearing these fan theories, I'd be like, oh, well, maybe it could be Venom. Maybe it's a prototype of Venom, you know? Because when you read the Nightfall comic book, Venom is defined in the comic book as a super steroid that affects the adrenal glands of the brain. That's like almost quote verbatim from the comic book of how they describe Venom. But in this grounded version, we could have Venom, instead of making you really muscular and giving you a ton of stretch marks, it would just really make you have a lot of adrenaline where you could, say, lift a car or whatever, and the person playing Bane would just be really buff. Honestly, because of the whole Tom Hardy Dark Knight Rises take on Bane, you simply cannot do Bane again without the Venom and without the intelligence that you see in Nightfall. So we need that. Honestly, I would love for Bane to dress like this. You know, you could make it a little bit more like the Tom Hardy Bane's outfit. It doesn't have to be a luchador outfit, but I really just want to see comic book accurate Bane. I want to see this in live action or something similar to it, you know. But you have to have the Venom. And I don't know how you would do the mask in a realistic way, but still being different enough from the Dark Knight Rises mask while still being somewhat comic book accurate. So to me, it's like, be comic book accurate. Are we going to get that? No, but I would love it. So it's important that Bane is Latino, preferably of Cuban descent, since Santa Prisca is supposed to be kind of an allegorically alternate version of Cuba, where the communist regime, well, it's basically, Bane is basically, you know, Santa Prisca is basically Cuba, but they didn't want to make it Cuba because that might have made people angry back when this comic book was made in the 90s. I think that Dave Bautista would be the perfect fit for the role. He's a really good actor. If you haven't seen him in things other than Guardians of the Galaxy, he can do anything. He's a very good actor. Kind of like Anna Joy Taylor, where all of the fan casts I've presented to you, their acting caliber is top notch. So I don't want any fan casts that are just for appearances. Again, I kind of already touched there. I don't really know how you do the Bane character comic book accurate. I don't know how you would take his design into a more realistic grounded version. You could give him like an armored vest with combat pants and combat boots and some kind of a helmet or mask, and the venom or like tubes of venom like on his belt that he can inject in him, instead of like the tubes going into his brain and stuff. So his belt, next to the belt buckle, are like rows of venom that he can just like pop out and just, you know, whenever he needs it. But I would really, if I was, because I don't think we're gonna get Bane in the Reeves universe. If I was DC, if I was David Zaslav, and I was looking at the success of Joker, and I was like, well, what other villain could we do that would do well? I would do Bane. Seriously. Go read Vengeance of Bane. It's one comic issue. Your respect and love for this villain will grow exponentially. His origin story is so good. So much better than what we saw in Dark Knight Rises. Honestly, do a solo Bane movie where you have his origin story, but instead of when he breaks out of prison, he goes straight to Gotham, he becomes the savior / ruler of Santa Prisca. You know where he's from. If you don't know, his parents were part of a coup or a resistance to the communist regime, and his father was killed and his mother put in prison while pregnant with Bane, and Bane was born in that prison, and his mom died, and they fed her to the sharks. And so Bane could grow up in the prison like he does in the comic book, but instead of going straight to Batman in Gotham, he takes over Santa Prisca. And you could have that be his origin story. And you could have, or an HBO Max show, and then if you're doing it in a Reeves, universe, you could have that backstory and then set up like, oh, well, he's coming to get Pattinson's Batman, that sort of thing. But honestly, I just want to see it. I don't care if it's connected to Pattinson's Batman or not. You could just end the movie with him being the ruler of Santa Prisca. I don't care. I just want to see live action Bane. You could, as I said, you could do the HBO Max Bane origin show, which leads to the Batman film appearance, or it could be like Joker and be a standalone thing. I think the relevance today with what like Russia's doing and everything and how it kind of fits, I think it could do well, because I think people are once again kind of like raging against communism a little bit. Not that Russia is technically communist, but I mean, we kind of associate them. I mean, they pretty much are. And you could also make it a time period piece, make it set in the Cold War, alongside the Cuban Missile Crisis and things like that. I think there's a lot of cool stuff there. So I think the most epic thing that you could do with this character is to build his origin movie, his origin through a movie or spin-off show, then at the end with him wanting to go to Gotham like he does in Nightfall. That's the way that I would do it. Have it in a 4th or 5th movie, if there is one. Bane shows up, you have the Nightfall story, you have Robin established in the previous film before Bane shows up, and then in Batman Nightfall you introduce Azrael as a character in part 1 of the story. So you have the prequel Bane story, then in part 1 you have Bane unleashes Arkham's Asylum like he does in the comic book, and then you end the movie with him breaking Batman's back. I really think Pattinson could nail that on the head. Just imagine Pattinson's Batman going up against Dave Bautista. Adrenalized Dave Bautista. Then in part 2, while Batman's back is broken, you have Azrael, who was introduced in the previous movie, take over as Batman, but he turns out to be a villain who can't be Batman without trying to kill people. As he does in the comic book, and Robin, you'd play it out like the comic book does. Azrael does end up beating Bane as Batman, he does in the comic book. Batman and Robin then have to defeat Azrael after Batman is healed, or maybe Batman's not fully healed, but he has to use Venom and Scarecrow Fear Toxin to kind of help him defeat Azrael. And the series ends with Batman and Robin doing their thing. That's how I would do Bane, and I would cast Dave Bautista. He has the passion for it. He has the build for it. I have no doubt that he can do a realistic Cuban accent. That's all for today. That's what I would do with the Batman Reeves verse if it was up to me. I would have HBO Max series, spin-offs, just developing this out as much as I possibly could. Have a great week, and peace out.